Well, Eric, another chapter in your upcoming book, Perplexities of Consciousness, is do you constantly experience your feet in your shoes? That's pretty interesting to think about. What is it that you think about that?
Your feet in your shoes, the weight of the shirt on your back, the humming of the refrigerator in the background, the rim of your eyeglasses, if you wear eyeglasses. You're always getting sensory input from those things, but you're rarely attending to those things. And then there's this kind of question, which is, okay, well, I'm not attending to them, but do I still experience them in some kind of peripheral way? Right? Are they part of my phenomenology, part of my stream of experience, part of what it's like to be me? There are roughly, to kind of sketch it out quickly, a little too simply, there are two basic views, right? One is what I call a sparse or a thin view, on which our experience is really very thin, right? We only experience basically what we're attending to, right? So if you are attending to driving on the road, the radio might be on, you're not paying any attention to it, you're not actually experiencing it at all. And you won't be experiencing the pressure of the seat against your back. If, on the other hand, if you're attending, say if you're listening to music and thinking about what you're going to be doing later that day at work, right, your eyes might be open, but you might not be having any visual experience at all. So that would be a thin view. You only experience one or a few things at a time. And it seems to you, according to the thin view, it seems to you, or the sparse view, it seems to you that you experience more than one thing at a time, or that you have constant experience of your feet in your shoes because of what sometimes gets called the refrigerator light error. So imagine a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old, right, opening the fridge and seeing the lights on, and closing the fridge and saying, I wonder if that light is still on in there. Opens it again. Oh, yeah, the light's still on. And then concluding that the fridge light is always on.
Yeah.
Right? So likewise, whenever you think about whether you're experiencing your feet in your shoes, that creates the experience of your feet in your shoes.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you had it before. So then there's this kind of illusion that you constantly experience your feet in your shoes. And you constantly hear the hum of the refrigerator.
And
so that would be,
how on earth would we test that? That's the problem.
Well, yes, this gets back
how
to
do you
what I was
peek
saying before.
inside the fridge when it's closed?
All right, so yeah, let's just finish the thought before getting to the testing part, right? So just to be explicit about it, the abundant view or the rich view says, no, we do have constant experience of all these things, right? So those are two opposing views. And then if you ask people, as carefully as I can ask them, it's a little conceptually complicated, so I don't know exactly whether we're talking. Sometimes we might be talking past each other, but as far as I can tell, when you ask people, it splits, at least the people I've asked, split about 50-50 between being attracted to abundant views or sparse views of experience, right? So, and they almost always think it's just completely obvious.
Yeah.
Right, and they can't really understand why anyone would think otherwise. And these are radically different views of the stream of experience, right? I mean, if you think about it, right, on one view, we hardly have any experience at all. We've got very little experience, right? On the other view, our experience is completely rich and full of detail all the time, right? These are radically different views of the stream of experience.
Yeah.
And if you're at all attracted to thinking that we're really good judges of our stream of experience, then it seems like, wow, it should be just completely obvious, which is right. But I think it's not obvious, right? People who are attracted to the abundant view might be making the refrigerator light error, right? That means that you can't trust concurrent introspection to address the question. You have to do something like retrospection. This is maybe the best way to try to test this view, is to ask people, okay, half a second ago, were you experiencing your feet in your shoes? Then they'll be reflecting on a moment that was, as it were, before the refrigerator door got open. Now, the problem with that is, well, let's say they say, yeah, I was experiencing it. You could worry, if you have a sparse view, that, well, really they're remembering something about the environment, not remembering something about their experience. And they're confusing those two. Or maybe really they're creating the experience now, but that doesn't mean they experienced it a moment ago. and there's some sort of temporal illusion involved.
Yeah.
Or people who are attracted to the abundant view can discount reports of lack of experience by saying, well, maybe it didn't get into memory. There's all this evidence now from change blindness studies and other kinds of studies that there's lots of stuff in our environment that we can respond to and detect but fail to remember, even like a split second later. Right? So that might be the case too with our experience. You might really be having an experience of your feet in your shoes, but then 1 second later when you reflect on it, you've already forgotten it.
Right.
It was never loaded even into short-term memory.
Like, for example, if you're walking across the lawn and there's say a flower in your way and you don't want to step on it, there'll be I don't even know if this one's been done, but just to illustrate the point, you can show somebody a video afterwards of them walking across the lawn and they slightly adjust their step to miss the flower. But you ask them right before showing the video, did you adjust your step to miss the flower? And they'll say, no, I don't know. What are you talking about? Right.
Yeah, that seems very plausible. I don't know about that particular example. That sounds just like the right kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it seems like the best way to do this is by immediate retrospection, because concurrent introspection is going to be corrupted by the introspective act, which might create the target experience. You want to do it with immediate retrospection. And the best way to do immediate retrospection is to release people into their ordinary environments with beepers. And at least this is seems like the best way to me, right? Give them beepers. Say, okay, the beep's going to go off, on average once every half hour or something like that, right? Fairly long intervals. You just do your normal stuff. And when the beep goes off, think about the last undisturbed moment right before that beep. And tell me, were you having visual experience at that moment? Were you having tactile experience? Were you having an experience of your feet in your shoes? Right, different subjects might get different requests along these lines, right? So one subject, that subject's only job might be, when the beep goes off, was I having a tactile experience in my left foot? So I did this. I sent people out into the environment and got completely, different reports, divergent reports from everyone, which I interpret fairly skeptically in light of the objections that I just gave. But I don't think that there's a better methodology for addressing this question out there, or at least there's not in the short to medium term. So you might think, okay, well, could we just measure people's brains? But the problem is we don't know what brain activity correlates with the stream of experience.
Yeah.
Until we have a theory, and there are very different theories. So there are some theories on which experience is rich and some on which it's thin, right? In order to interpret the brain activity, you have to, in advance, have chosen one of those theories, right? But those theories seem unjustified until after you've already settled the sparse versus abundant question. So there's a kind of fairly tight, I think, and problematic theoretical circle in trying to address it by, say, neurological measures. Same with simple report measures, right? So if you can ask a question, say a multiple choice question of someone, right, about something that was going on in their peripheral vision, right? Let's say they get it wrong. Let's say they get it right. How do you interpret that? Do you interpret that as showing that they had or lacked an experience in that part of their visual field? Well, in order to interpret it that way, you have to have a theory of the relationship between consciousness and report and memory. And that theory is already going to build into it presuppositions about the sparse versus abundant question. So in the book, actually, I turn this into an argument against general theories, any general theory of consciousness that's on the market today, by saying, look, all these general theories have to assume an answer to the sparse versus abundant question. But there's no way to justify one or the other answer. There doesn't seem to be any good methodological way to justify choosing one versus the other. So therefore, none of these theories could be adequately justified. They're going to have built in from the start a contentious assumption about the sparseness or abundance or maybe moderateness of the stream of experience.
So it sounds like you think it'll be very difficult for us to answer these questions very well until we've made a lot more progress in cognitive neuroscience.
Right. So sometimes I'm tempted to a pessimism that says, well, this is just irresolvable. We'll never solve it. Right. But I am also humbled by by the success of science in solving all kinds of questions that one might antecedently have thought would be unsolvable. So I don't want to express pessimism about the long-term future possibility of solving this, right? But in the short to medium term, it seems to me like this is pretty hopeless.